My fellow Americans.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
A man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
He says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that.
All right, welcome to As the World Burns. I am your host, and with me is my co-host, the incredible and daring Tree Spirit. Welcome, Tree Spirit.
Hey.
Today we're going to be talking about something that I actually just found out about recently because of the Tree Spirit bestowing his knowledge upon me. And it's an interesting subject about the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. I actually was not familiar with this case, and it turns out it's actually one of the cases that it was one of the first missing person cases that they had put on a milk carton back in the day. True story.
This is true, yes. I think there was like two boys involved in this case, and they're both the two boys that were the first ones.
There was actually, from what I was reading, yeah, there were two, but there might have even been a third boy involved in the case too.
Oh, there's definitely hundreds of children involved in that case.
Yeah, well, so what I read is like in that town though, there were three paper boys that like got abducted, and they were all 2 years apart going up to 1986. It was 1982, 84, and 86.
Scary.
Yeah. Johnny Gosch was kidnapped, and over the years, there were a lot of weird circumstances that were, that were leading his parents in weird directions.
Specifically his mom.
Yeah, exactly. Specifically his mom. His mom would get like calls from Johnny pleading and shit for his life and shit like that.
I think they both tell her like that was all fake people messing.
That's what some people were saying, but you never know. She got visited by Johnny at one point too, in the future when he was a teenager, allegedly.
No, I think he was an adult.
Was he an adult at that time? I thought if he was an adult, it was
Is
like a young adult.
Maybe you're right though.
It was sometime in the 90s or 1987, something like that. 87 to like the 90s.
And Johnny Gosch pretty much just told her that like, hey, I love you and like I'm okay now. Like the people that I'm involved with now are like way too dangerous and like I can't come home. Like you need to stop looking.
Yeah, and that brings up a lot of interesting things that I think I might talk about later on when we get into the Jeff Gannon part of it. Do you know what I'm talking about with the Jeff Gannon stuff?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get to that in a bit. It got to a certain point where the mom was getting sick of the FBI because apparently the FBI were like completely fumbling the investigation. The mom was actually like actively getting pissed at the FBI and decided to, I guess, have them stop investigating, and she hired her own private eyes. But at one point, I guess even one of the private eyes was like doing such a bad job that the mom actually accused him of actually working for the people trying to cover up whatever was happening. Later on, there were, I guess, multiple witnesses around, like, the U.S. of people, like, allegedly seeing Johnny Gosch. There was a woman who actually, she thought that she witnessed a domestic disturbance. I forget where this was. It was in, like, Louisiana or, like, or Georgia or Florida or something like that. Somewhere, like along the coast, but down south. And this woman actually reported this to the police. And at the time, the police just thought it was like a domestic disturbance, like some kid that was like running away from home. But allegedly, this kid, this like teenager, ran up to this woman and said that his name is Johnny Gosch and that he's been taken by some people or something like that. And she reported that to the cops, but didn't think anything of it until later on when she was watching like an Unsolved Mysteries episode or something like that. They were talking about the Johnny Gosch case, and she ended up calling and mentioning that she went to the police about that incident, and it ended up being like a real incident that she went to the police about, which is kind of crazy. Anyways, fast forward a little bit. Again, like
I could be wrong, but wasn't there a part where I don't know if it was Johnny Gosch himself, but it was like another little boy who was like I forgot how they found this photo, but they found some photo that had like a girl and a young boy tied up and like gagged, and it was like some creepy ass looking picture.
so that was
And
I was gonna mention that was there were a group of boys. I don't know if there was any girls in there, but there were a group of boys.
I thought it was. I think I'm mixing up with another picture.
Maybe because the mom got a bunch of pictures on her doorstep one day after like the bell rang, like the doorbell, and it was like a stack of photos of like little like kids being gagged, and some of the kids were actually identified, but the only one, like one of the only ones in the photos that weren't identified was the one that she was swearing was Johnny Gosh, that the
Wow.
cops like refused to identify, which is kind of
Well,
crazy.
I could be mixing up with another photo then, because there's another photo, or maybe it is that photo where I think like the chief of police or like the lead investigator or something. I forgot who it was. He pretty much says, and I saw him in a documentary about it. Double down on this, that photo was a fake, and that they see photos like that all the time. That's like a That's like something that somebody was like. His explanation was that like somebody made that, but they weren't. Those kids weren't really in trouble, and it wasn't from some movie. It wasn't from anything that anybody's ever seen before. But he's saying like, "Yo, that's not real. That's just like almost for entertainment."
That's what I heard too. And then they said that they were able to identify the kids in the picture, but all of them were identifiable except for the one that she was saying was Johnny Gosh. They weren't able to identify that one. They did say that it
Yeah,
was like a staged photo, but they said that it was that they couldn't identify any of the that they could identify all of the kids, but not the one who she was saying was Johnny Gosh, which is kind of crazy. But
yeah,
all right, but let me throw this in. So later on there's this guy named Paul Bishop, right? Who allegedly was a CIA agent who ended up meeting with the mom and feeding her information about uh a CP ring that was happening around the area.
yeah, yep,
And he was, I guess, telling her that all of this was like happening and that her kid was probably involved in it. And he kept feeding her information until eventually he just disappeared off the face of the earth, to the point where even the number that he gave her to contact him was dead, like couldn't like reach it completely anymore.
sounds like really powerful people did that.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think the powerful people are, it's a similar situation to Epstein, so to speak, but let's not get into that just yet. Anyways, so there was this guy who was feeding the information, went missing. Eventually, there was this dollar bill that got around that they found, and it read on it, "I am alive, Johnny Gosh." And the family, the mom and the dad, if I'm not mistaken, they both said that it was his handwriting. It was Johnny Gosh's handwriting. I think the mom was more so pursuing this harder. I mean, as you can tell, the mom seemed to be really in this situation and was really adamant that her kid was alive. Later on, we've already gone over this part of it quite a bit, but there were other paper boys that were targeted. There were two other ones that ended up going missing, and it got so bad to the point where paper boys were being attacked, bullied, and basically, it almost seemed like some of them were almost being kidnapped, but they were able to get away. It got so bad at this point that the local paper actually had to hire men now and not paper boys in order actually to deliver the paper because it got to be too dangerous for the delivery boys. Now we're in the 90s and it's kind of settled down a little bit, the whole missing Johnny Gosh case. There's been some sightings across the US. There's been a few things that have kind of happened, but nothing major has come up. enter this man named Paul Bonacci. Paul Bonacci was, I think, in his 20s, if I'm not mistaken. He was this younger guy who claimed that this Franklin credit union was operating a child trafficking ring, and it was connected to Boys Town in Nebraska. And what they were basically doing was they were abducting kids and taking kids out of Boys Town, Nebraska. A lot of them were Republican politicians and bigwigs at the time, but I'm not trying to point to one side. It seems like maybe there were a lot of people on both sides involved in this situation, but this guy, Larry E. King Jr., was, I guess, on the board or something for Boys Town and Girls Town in Nebraska, which were adoption agencies, if I'm not mistaken, or like child care places. And essentially, he was also the president or CEO of the Franklin Credit Union. And I guess Paul Bonacci claimed that he was abused and trafficked in related to this whole scandal. And what he said too was he reached out to Noreen, which was Johnny Gosch's mom, and he told Noreen that he was sold into trafficking along with Johnny Gosch. He actually said a few things that were actually pretty accurate about Johnny Gosch too. He said something that everyone knew because it was in the papers, but he also described scars that Johnny Gosch had that nobody knew that he had, other than people extremely close to him. He described a stutter that Johnny Gosch gets when he gets really nervous. He described quite a few things that, like, if you knew Johnny Gosch, you would know about him. So he was in this legal battle with Larry King, this guy that was head of the Franklin scandal. And from what I understand, the FBI investigated all of this. I guess this guy, Larry King, owned he might have owned like hotels or something like that, where he would also like he would have I guess Paul Bonacci said that he would have rooms with cameras on where he would record like the politician or whoever that he was taking care of at the time. uh Weird shit. Anyways, it was kind of like an Epstein situation, from what I can tell. I'll get more into that later on again. Um, what I guess this guy Larry King also did was he would throw like these crazy Diddy parties, like these freak offs. Or I guess you could say that they were more accurately like Bryan Singer parties, because Bryan Singer, if anybody knows, if anybody's watched an Open Secret, the Hollywood documentary, Bryan Singer would throw these really crazy parties and have all these underage boys just attend, and it would just get really bad and weird. Just some weird shit going on in Hollywood, as you might imagine. But the Franklin scandal was just like some weird next level shit. It was like the Diddy and Epstein shit combined, and all that going back. Anyways, the whole reason why the Franklin scandal even happened was because the Franklin credit union was actually being investigated for I guess laundering money, if I'm not mistaken. They were missing money, and they ended up finding a major scandal in the Boys Town in Nebraska was a front for powerful people named as part of a sex cult, basically. Another part of this, people that were involved in covering this up, was the Omaha World Herald, which is the actual biggest newspaper of that area of Omaha specifically. And if I'm not mistaken, the editor and a lot of people that were actually involved in this newspaper were actually involved in this scandal and named as accomplices to this scandal and quite possibly helped cover it up. Which, if you looked at a lot of the newspapers at the time of the 80s and 90s, anytime that a mention of like a sex trafficking ring or a kidnapping ring that would go on, the Herald would kind of dismiss it as a hoax, which is kind of interesting, given the connection later on of the editors and everybody. Remember I mentioned those somewhat like Diddy freak-off parties that Larry King would have? If anybody's familiar with somebody named Oliver North. Now, if you're a fan...
Familiar. Who is that?
So, if you're a fan of the Iran-Contra scandal like I am, Oliver North was the fall guy for the Iran-Contra scandal. He ended up becoming a Fox News host commentator, but he was the guy that supposedly Colonel Oliver North. He sent people, if I'm not mistaken, to do business with the Sandinistas and to smuggle cocaine and get guns for the cocaine and yada yada yada. We're probably gonna do a big Iran-Contra episode because that's one of my favorite. It's honestly one of my favorite American military scandals of all time. But Oliver North was apparently at these Larry King freak-offs. So this brings us to another guy that Larry King was friends with, and if I'm not mistaken, was either his lawyer or somebody that was connected to Larry King very closely. This guy's name was Craig Spence. Now, Craig Spence was actually this well-connected guy. From what I could tell, Craig Spence was the guy that connected Larry King to all these famous politicians and the White House, basically. So much so that there was a scandal involving Craig Spence where he took all these teenage prostitutes into the White House for midnight tours during George H.W. Bush's tenure as president. You can look this up. It's a famous thing. He got in trouble for it, and if I'm not mistaken, he even got arrested for doing this. But it was a thing. He got caught taking all these male prostitutes on midnight tours of the White House. So, this guy, Craig Spence, who was involved in, from what I understand, also rounding up a lot of these kids, later on claimed that he was somebody was trying to kill him, so he barricaded himself in his Boston hotel room, or allegedly he killed himself. Odd situation. He was barricaded pretty well, but I guess he got killed and he killed himself, allegedly. Anyways, this guy Craig Spence was the one who was always in the hotels videotaping all of the people committing all these sex acts, and from what I could understand, Paul Bonacci actually named him as one of the main accomplices in this situation. And that's why he was freaking out and wanted to kill himself, allegedly. Anyways.
I have a really good chicken or the egg. What came first? The first person to kill themselves? Or the first person to kill somebody and say they killed themselves?
Well, are you saying in history, like, completely?
Yeah, what came first? Were people first killing people and then saying that they killed themselves? Or would nobody believe that, so that never happened?
Isn't that the story of Cain and Abel? The first murder?
Wait, did he say Abel killed himself?
I thought that's how it happened. I thought he said that Abel, like, died in an accident.
Well, that's different. I'm talking about somebody, like, said that they killed themselves. I keep saying themselves. Killed themselves. Their self? Their self? Themself?
No, he did not say that Abel killed himself.
Killed his self?
Yeah. Anyways, we got to get back to this. This final part's about Jeff Gannon. I mean, I'm pretty much almost done, anyways. This was kind of just like a what is it?
Yeah, keep going, man. You're on a roll.
This was just like a crash course, but I am on a roll, and I think it's I think I did a pretty good job of devouring all this. All right, so all that takes us to the future. Enter the 2000s, this man named Jeff Gannon, who's a White House political correspondent who's only known form or claim to fame was a vlog that he hosted. I forgot what the exact website was called, but he hosted a website at the time where he would do news articles. And a lot of people wondered because Jeff Gannon would get asked, like, he would ask the president very softball questions. And apparently this website that he hosted came up after he was a White House political correspondent. So the only claim to his journalistic integrity was something that came up after he was a White House correspondent, which almost doesn't make any sense. So a lot of people looked into it and they found out that Jeff Gannon was actually this prostitute in the 90s and early 2000s in the Washington, D.C. area, and I guess known by the name Bulldozer, if that matters to anybody. I don't know why I remembered that specific aspect, but his nickname was the Bulldozer. Anyways, so the Bulldozer ends up becoming a White House political correspondent, but before this, he was a gay male prostitute. And a lot of things were coming up about Jeff Gannon, and a lot of people were questioning his past and saying that he looked or a lot like Johnny Gosch and had a lot of similarities to Johnny Gosch. And one thing that was kind of interesting was they looked into his background, and he actually had different names that he changed to, and one of them was Jeff Gorlock, and another one was James Gorlock, and then he was known by Jeff Gannon. So this brings us to something that was, I think, pretty interesting that not a lot of people, I guess, know about or think about, but the day of Johnny Gosch's disappearance, you remember he was a paper boy, right? So the day of Johnny Gosch's disappearance, he had a newspaper in his hand. I don't know if you're familiar with this aspect of the whole conspiracy, but it's very fascinating. The day he disappeared, he had a newspaper, and it was of the newspaper that he was employed for. They actually had an article about the newspaper at the time. And it was about the new editor-in-chief that was just put into power at that newspaper that very same day. And his name was Jeff Gannon. True story. And then there was this other guy that was mentioned in the article that also worked. What is it?
I did not know that. I just want to say real quick that
Yeah.
because you haven't said it yet, but I know it's obvious, but the J and G initials. It's like, why would you? It's like,
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say that's obvious. I wasn't even gonna mention that because that's so
yeah.
obvious. Yeah.
But it's like also like maybe he was a kid when he changed his name. Like maybe they were like, pick a new name, kid, because you can't be yourself anymore. And he's like,
Well, maybe the only thing he had was this newspaper, so he read the names James Gannon, and he's like, "Well, that's the name I'm gonna go." Maybe he just kept rereading this newspaper. But listen to this: before we say theories about where his names came from, let me mention something else. There was this other guy that was at the newspaper that was also mentioned in the very same article that worked for James Gannon. and his name was Gary Gorlock. Now you remember he went by Jeff Gorlock at one point. This James
Gorlock.
Gannon guy. What is it?
I thought also James Gorlock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So he went by these different names, and two of those same names, almost identically, are in this newspaper that Johnny Gosch was abducted with that same day. That related to the newspaper that Johnny Gosch was doing a paperboy for, which was also directly connected. These two guys were connected to the Franklin scandal and were helping to cover it up by saying that it was hoaxes that all these people were being abducted. So what if James Gannon and Gary Gorlock were directly involved in Johnny Gosch's kidnapping, and when they took over as the editor-in-chief and whatever that Gary Gorlock did, they were helping to procure these kids, and they were the ones involved in the kidnapping in the first place. That's just one little theory I have for part of this. But here's another thing. Jeff Gannon would get pleads from Noreen Gosch, Johnny Gosch's mother, would get pleads, emails about please, I know you're my son, basically telling Jeff Gannon that he knows that he's his son, like to plead with her, to talk to her, to reach out to her. And he would not do it. He went on TV with famous, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. He's a very famous private investigator who's well connected in Washington, D.C. And if I'm not mistaken, he's pretty corrupt too. He actually worked with the Wolf of Wall Street in real life. His name was Bo Dietl.
What an awful name.
Yeah, a very weird and unique name, but this dude went on TV with Jeff Gannon, basically saying about how Jeff Gannon. You know what? Actually, real quick, let me show you this. Let me show you this interview. That way we can just comment
Ask
about
him
it.
if he's
Real quick.
Johnny Gosch.
It's Bo Dietl is defending him, saying that he's not Johnny Gosch.
Find that, but also find the interview where he on the news, these news anchors ask him like, "So, are you Johnny Gosch?" And then like he has the weirdest answer. They're talking about this on the news.
Yep. This is Bo Dietl. See, the news used to be cool, dude. I remember watching an ABC News special from the 70s or 80s about MK Ultra.
That's awesome.
What is it?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it ended up getting banned, and you can't really find it anymore, but I have it saved somewhere. Pretty cool.
That's scary.
Yeah. Hey, you know what's funny is we're reacting to a reaction of a reaction. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, except the original reaction is a mother's reaction to her son being kidnapped. That's the whole reaction. It's an awful thing to have to react to. But that's not necessary.
What's it say? What would you say?
He said yes, but that's not necessary. So he's not
Yeah.
going to do it. He's not going to take a
Listen to
blood
how
test.
hard Bo Dietl defends Jeff. It's almost like Bo was like paid off. And just keep in mind how corrupt Bo is, just in general. He's just so corrupt of a private investigator. It's crazy. You see, Jeff, like when he was saying all that shit, Jeff was like literally gulping and shit.
Yeah.
He was going like, you're talking too much, buddy.
That is a weird thing. What did he just say? My real mother. Why would he say my real mother instead of just my mother?
Yeah.
My friend Jeff. He keeps saying that. My friend Jeff.
Even she noticed it. Jeff, you tell him. Hey, you want a payroll?
This is like such a stage.
That's what I'm
They're
saying.
like, it's like meant to be funny.
It's just like you see Bo is like nervously sweating. It's almost like Bo is doing way too hard of a job of defending this guy.
Well, obviously, I think that they're both playing into it, and they're like, no one's gonna like. They're like, yeah, straight up play the part of like the person who's accusing him of this. Like, she's accusing him of of covering a child sex trafficking.
I guess so.
And he's just like, oh no, it's just my good friend Jeff. And she's like, are you paid by the government? She's smiling.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that she's a little more suspicious of this whole thing. I feel like Bo was probably paid to be there and defend him and by Jeff, and that Jeff is acting in this way because he's basically thinking in his head like, Bo, you're going off script. You're doing a little bit too much. You're doing a little bit too much.
The vibe I got is that Jeff Gannon is a nervous wreck and like really a broken person because he is Johnny Gosch. Bo Deedle, whoever this fucking guy is deeply connected to this and just is like, yeah, my good, like he's trying to be nice to Jeff because that's kind of like how you, I guess how you would like treat somebody that you're trying to like not turn on you. It's like my good friend Jeff. No, this is my good friend Jeff. Because one day Jeff could just be like, all right, it's true. I'm Johnny Gosh, and all these people are part of this crazy thing, and I'm in. So it's very clear to me that Jeff Gannon or Johnny Gosh got involved in the thing that he was dragged into, and unfortunately, that's something that happens. Like kids that get trafficked, often they'll turn into the people who like kidnap other kids, and that's how it isn't. That's how it is in like cults and shit. Like they get you to recruit more people in like horrible ways.
That's what I was thinking, but I was also thinking that, or I imagine this guy has an incredibly cushy life right now. He has a bullshit job where all he's paid to do is ask the president incredibly easy questions. So I imagine he was given this life with the cusp of basically like, hey, your childhood, everything that you experienced is all gone, but you get all of this stuff now because you dealt with all that bullshit from the politicians because we wanted to get politicians basically catch them entrapping people. So if Jeff Gannon were to actually reveal that he's Johnny Gosh, what this would do is this would open up the investigation as to why the CIA and all these people are letting all these people traffic children and trying to catch all these politicians in blackmail schemes. And what they would have to do is try to basically explain the exact same thing. Remember that Julian Assange quote I sent you? They would basically have to explain that all this is a big honeypot scheme set up by the CIA or at least perpetuated by them in order to keep the keep all of this running, keep all of this shit going. But that's just allegedly. That's a theory.
Johnny Gosh wanted to tell the truth, and like, pretty much if he told her that that's who he is, right away, that's kind of just admitting that like he didn't just die. It wasn't just a one-off thing. Like something happened to him, and now he's like working for the president, and like he has a lot of things he has to answer to. I think that they would just kill him. You know what I mean? So like, why do they need to pamper him? Because he works for them now. He genuinely works for them. He's one of them now. That's what I think. Allegedly.
Yeah. I'm reading some of his shit, but hey, here's something that's pretty interesting about Gannon. Gannon was questioned by the Justice Department in relation to the department's criminal investigation into the Valerie Plame affair, in which Plame's identity as an employee of the CIA was leaked to a journalist by the administration official. On October 28, 2003, Talon News published, and that's the news organization that Gannon was allegedly a part of. I say allegedly, but that he was. Talon News published an interview in 3 parts that Gannon had conducted with Ambassador Joseph C. Wilson, Plame's husband, whom the CIA had sent to Niger in 2003 to investigate claims that Iraq was attempting to procure yellow cake uranium. In the interview, Gannon asked Wilson about the internal government memo prepared by the U.S. intelligence personnel that said Plame had suggested Wilson for the job. In a February 2005 interview, Gannon told CNN's Wolf Blitzer that the FBI had spoken to him in an effort to learn who had leaked the classified memo and to whom, but he had not been asked to appear before the grand jury investigating the case. Many assumed the White House had leaked the memo to him. Gannon said he had learned about its existence after it had been mentioned in a story published in the Wall Street Journal. So this dude probably was leaking shit accidentally from the Wall Street, from Washington, D.C.
That's the Johnny Gosch story.
Well, hold on. I want to also say we the last place that we left off at with talking about it was we were gonna look at the interview. I know we talked a little bit about it, but I want to say as a as I guess an aside, they didn't ever do a DNA test like they said they would. They never actually did that.
Of course not.
But I want to say a few other things too that relate to the Johnny Gosch case. So no, they never got any tests. But here's another thing. So do you remember that guy Paul Bonacci?
Is he the one who disappeared?
I forgot what happened to Paul Bonacci, but he might have disappeared. But here's a crazy story that Paul Bonacci mentioned that I don't know if you knew it, and
Tell me.
this relates to how we started talking about this whole thing in general. Remember you meant we were talking about fear.
You've already
What is
told
it?
me stuff I didn't know about this case that I found really interesting.
But this is the thing: is this relates to how we started talking about this? You remember how we started talking about this because we mentioned Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Wait, what?
So
When?
on an earlier episode, we were talking about Johnny Depp, and I thought you were saying I wonder if Johnny ever did adrenochrome, and I thought you were talking about Johnny Depp, but you were talking about Johnny Gosch, and I was just kind of rolling with it.
Well, I definitely had
Well-
said we should do. I've been trying to get you to. I've been trying to get you to talk about Johnny Gosch since like the first
Yeah.
episode, but like not on air.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, so okay, understood. But here's a story that connects those two things.
Yes.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Johnny Gosch, which I never knew. I actually kind of knew this story, but I didn't know it, and I didn't know that it connected to this whole thing.
Oh, does it connect to
The Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Bless you.
Cough, but thanks.
Hail Satan.
Anyways, so Paul Bonacci said that one time they met up with this guy out in the middle of the Nevada desert, and they said his name was Hunter Thompson, and that they shot a snuff film with this guy. Fast forward a little bit, and Hunter S. Thompson's assistant or ex-assistant actually said in an interview that I've actually heard this before, and I never knew that, like, I never thought about it as connecting to anything. I thought it was just an odd thing that he was like involved in, but allegedly he wanted to show his assistant a snuff film that he made, and she I guess that's why she stopped being an assistant, or she like walked out on him or something like that. Like, she was disgusted by the aspect of it. And I actually have heard rumors and stories that he's shown off a snuff film to multiple people out there in the world, and that's just the thing that he used to do. What is it?
Who do you think he killed?
I don't know, but that's the story. But here's another thing. So allegedly, the night before Hunter S. Thompson died, he told his wife or something like that, or somebody close to him, that they're going to kill him and they're going to make it look like a suicide. Now, Here's another thing that happened around the same exact time. So this guy, he was Larry King Jr. Remember the guy Larry King Jr. who owned the Franklin Credit Union and went up against Paul Bonacci? He was Larry King Jr.'s personal photographer, and he claimed that one day Hunter S. Thompson asked him to make a snuff film for him, but he refused. Now, fast forward, Hunter S. Thompson commits suicide. He kills himself in his house. And you know what
His family
happens
in the
like a
house.
week or with his family in the house? And allegedly, it was a suicide. But a week or two later, you know what happens?
No.
Is the cameraman for Larry King gets raided by the FBI. And allegedly, he said that he thinks it has something to do with the Hunter S. Thompson film and that they think that he made it for Hunter S. Thompson.
Wow.
So, just a weird little story there of how Hunter S. Thompson connects to this whole Johnny Gosch thing and how,
You think he killed himself because he got caught? He knew
I don't know.
you knew like he knew from somebody tipping him off that like they were gonna come and get him.
That or they did come and get him. And he didn't just get tipped off, or he got
Or
tipped off, but
somebody
he
else
just,
came and get him. Came and got him.
yeah, they suicided him.
They Epsteined him.
Yeah, well, yeah. They Seth Riched him.
They can't
Yeah,
think of
what's
another
another one?
You know
They
who's the guy? Who's the guy? Do you know? All right, are we done talking about Johnny Gosh? Because I got one more interesting thing for you to look up.
yeah, so that was the story of Johnny Gosh. I hope it was interesting for everybody. It was pretty fascinating when I was reading about it and learning about it. All right, there we go. What else you got?
All right, look up the actor who claims that Seth Green is a human trafficking pedophile.
Oh, I have heard about that.
Have you looked into it?
I have a little bit.
And then he threw himself off an overpass into busy traffic.
Yeah, I did hear about that. Hold on, give me a minute. Isaac Cappy.
Yes,
I think we've actually talked about this before too.
definitely not on the
But
podcast.
all right, so I just read about this Isaac Cappy guy, at least his death, and I don't know. I think QAnon is bullshit, and I think it's I think if anything, it was created by the intelligence community in order to spread disinformation and to create discourse among
So
conspiracy theorists. I'll just say that.
people say that this guy had a Dead Man Switch video upload. It was a Dead Man Switch, so it was set
But
to
did it
upload
ever go up because
if
he
he died,
died?
or like say like it's like set to upload at a certain time, and if he doesn't come back and turn it off, then it gets uploaded. Supposedly,
So is that does that mean it's gonna be uploaded?
it already has.
So have you seen it or has anybody seen it?
That's it right there. Yeah, but there's like young children acting as servants. You know, like a weird place. Like it's so look what they're wearing and look what they're doing. Like when I saw this, I felt like I really shouldn't be watching it.
I love the comment. If the footage speaks for itself, why did the commenter feel the need to ramble on for 2 minutes about it before actually pressing play? That was great.
Yeah, I think he made a post straight up saying that like I filmed like like he was saying that like he fucked up because he like filmed this and they know that he filmed this. Look, that little girl just like looks at him like, what? Isn't it really uncomfortable?
Yeah, it's weird.
You know what I think? I think that's possible that somebody brought him here
Hmm.
because they're like, all right, fuck it, all right, let's like it's almost like a ritual to just like this guy's if you're trying to bring it to light or like this is what you think is going on. Well, here let's like straight put you in the room and like they left him in this room that's like that they know that he would hate to be in, or like maybe even they're trying to set him up. But either way, like he's talking about how like he chose to pull out his phone and document it, but at the same time, it's weird because it's like where I don't know.
I want to know what the kids are saying to him
Try to find a different version of the video.
because the kid literally says something to him. See it?
I'm not like somebody who follows this sort of thing. Like I don't care. I'm not somebody who believes that Tom Hanks is a pedophile. I have no idea about that. I'm not somebody who believes in QAnon. I believe that's fucking stupid. But I think what happened with this guy is so fucking weird, man. You can try to find a version where you can just hear the audio of the video. Maybe you hear what the kid says.
Wait, was this the guy that they seen Tom Hanks was on the same highway as the one that this guy died on?
Oh, maybe I don't know.
So there was a guy that was investigating Tom Hanks for being a basically Tom Hanks took a picture out in the desert in front of a glove and posted it
Oh,
to his Instagram, which was very odd. And allegedly, it was in the same spot or it was around the same area that some dude that was like investigating him committed suicide, like that very same day or week or whatever.
that might have been somebody else. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. It was this guy or it was weird.